Hi, today is February 6th, Friday. I'm Cindy Allen, CEO of TradeForce Multiplier, a global trade consultancy service that offers everything from classification to strategy for importers, exporters, customs brokers, and data companies. Welcome to Simply Trade, Cindy's version, where I base an international trade update on a Taylor Swift song. And today's song is Long Live. I'll get into that in a moment. First, what happened in trade this week? I have talked about the express carrier bill that was introduced in the last couple of weeks to introduce a simplified clearance process for express clearance participants to have parity with the Postal Service. This week, Peter Navarro, who is part of the administration, has come out on social media very against it, saying that de minimis just is something that won't die. We've heard from the administration and how they feel about this. Senator Wyden, in more Hill news, Senator Wyden did send a letter about the exclusion process and how it's very secretive and confusing, and Congress would like more transparency, which is a good signal that Congress may be stepping in a little bit more in some of these proceedings, which I think is good news for all of the importers and exporters. Next week, the Senate Finance Committee is actually going to hold a hearing on USMCA. They have some pro-trade people and some domestic industries that aren't necessarily considered to be pro-trade, but we'll all look forward to that. And hopefully we'll have an update for you on how the hearing went. The EU is set to take up trade negotiations with the U.S. again, internally within their parliament to make sure that they can pass that bill. This is to avoid some of the actions that the president and the administration have indicated with other countries that haven't passed those timely. So I think they're getting ahead of that. Also this week, the International Trade Commission has finally published the HTS updates, mostly in the food and pharma industry. Those were effective on February 1st. So if you're affected by that, take a look at the International Trade Administration. Also, very interesting that the administration has announced they are looking into a preferential trade zone for critical minerals. They said that this was to look at enforceable price floors at every stage of production. No further details on that. So we'll look forward to hearing. J.D. Vance, the vice president, was the one who announced that and is moving that forward. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that. Also, we're still waiting on details of the India reductions on the IEEPA tariffs. Supposedly, they're going down from 50% in total to 18%, but we haven't seen a Federal Register notice or a CSMS come out on that. So we're still awaiting the details to implement that. And I think in the most confusing trade update this week, the administration announced that it had a call with China and that they believe that the trade relationship was important and was extremely good. This follows a year of actions against China that are somewhat confusing. So we've seen somewhat of a turn in the China-U.S. trade relations, which is good news if you're importing from China. Hopefully we'll have some stability moving forward on that. So today's song is Long Live, and I'm going to read you some lyrics that I think are appropriate to this topic. And that's, I said, remember this feeling. I passed the pictures around of all the years we stood there on the sidelines wishing for right now. We are the kings and the queens. You traded your baseball cap for a crown. When they gave us our trophies, we held them up for our town. Another line is, long live the walls we crashed through, how the kingdom lights shine just for me and for you. So I think this really speaks to celebrating friendship and success. And to do that, I have two wonderful trade ladies here beside me. I'll start with Miss Heather Litman, who is one of the leading legal minds in our industry in international trade. She is a partner with GDLSK, a former COEC member, a board member of AAI, and I'm proud to call her my friend.
Thank you, Cindy.
The other person I have here is arguably the most important person in trade today, Miss Sandy Coty, who I had a hard time fitting all of her accomplishments on one page. She's a director at A. Deringer. She's a past PCC chair, which is the Pacific Coast Council of Customs Brokers, past Los Angeles Customs Brokers Association president. She's a current COAC member. She's the chair of the NCBFA Customs Committee, which is probably the most influential industry committee right now when you're talking about international trade. She's also known as the ACE guru, understanding ACE probably better than anyone in the industry, including me, who had responsibility for ACE. I am in awe of her accomplishments and proud to call her my friend as well.
Thank you, Cindy.
So I met, I'll start with Heather. I met Heather probably 20 years ago when we were asked to speak in an NCBFA or conference on a panel together.
Value panel, I think
a value panel. How appropriate would that be today?
Very appropriate.
And your father, who was a mentor of mine, said, you have to meet Heather. She's an up-and-coming legal mind in the industry. He may have been slightly biased, but he was absolutely right.
Thank you.
Been fabulous and are one of the leading industry members here. Glad to know you. And I met Sandy over a decade ago. I can't remember when, but at NCBFA as well, moved through. And Sandy had the opportunity, and I won't say pleasure, but opportunity to speak with me last year here in Houston, Advanced Topics in Customs Compliance seminar put on by DeLeon Associates. We're all happy to be invited here to attend and speak. And Sandy had to actually politely ask me to shut up so she could do her
I could have my time.
So I asked them here today, not just because they are fantastic ladies and friends, but also to talk about celebrating success in friendship. We've all met a measure of success in this industry. We've all been friends. And I wanted to ask you some important questions, I think, around that. The first one is, how important is it to have friends in this industry?
Super important. I would just say super duper important. I think there's no better way, as we're seeing so much fluidity, so much change, so much that no one person can get their arms around it. And friends who are thinking about different things, how to approach things differently, people you can call on the fly and say, oh my God, I just don't understand this. No judgment free zone, or what are we doing here? To talk to is vital, is critical at this time.
Absolutely. To be able to phone a friend, call it in. I don't understand this. How are you reading it? Have you seen this? It's an immeasurable benefit to have such a network of people that all have different strengths to be able to call in and just bounce ideas and questions with.
I say that now even at the firm I'm with, not having to be a solo or at a small firm. I mean, I'm at a firm with a bunch of attorneys and we all do customs or trade law. And it's so nice to have a deep bench, right? And to be friends with everybody, call up a colleague and say, oh my God, are you thinking about this? How do you do it? But to be able to reach out into the community, even if you don't have that, and to be able to pull on those other types of knowledge, people focusing on different commodities, right? If I need an ACE report that I don't understand, I call Sandy. If I need to know, I don't know, so many things, I call Cindy. And it's very important, no matter how high up you are in your career or what level of success you've achieved, you still need friends and you still need people you can reach out to learn new things and keep your mind engaged as things are changing so quickly.
And we share a lot. If I learn something, I'll say, hey, do you all know this? Did you read this? Because you can't possibly digest everything that's coming at us. So if you find a good nugget that you can share, we share good information with each other.
Yeah, well, I'm laughing because, there is so much that's shared kind of, I think, what was that? I think it was the LA brokers that shared that infamous base metals memo that came out, wasn't it? And when I say infamous, it's something that we all needed to look at very quickly. I'll stop there. Also, I would say to new people in the trade space, it's a very collaborative crew, and it's important to embrace the community. I always say to the young lawyers at my firm, it enhances your career to make the friends and to be a part of the community because it is so collaborative and so welcoming and supportive.
So the second question I want to ask you is, how important was attendance at conferences, membership in associations, in the development of those friendships?
Well, you guys are looking at me. I met you at a conference. We're all still friends. I mean, it's so important to go to the conferences. You hear, even just to hear the vocabulary that's being used now amongst people. How are we talking about things? What's the common dialogue? And then to make friends there. I always say to people, don't sit at the table where you know everybody, right? Go pick a table where you don't know anyone. Be silly. Introduce yourself to everybody. Say, here I am. This is who I am. Let me introduce myself. Carry physical cards. Hand them out. Make friends. You'd be surprised how many really lovely lovely people you meet at conferences, sitting around the breakfast table, talking about how you're tired from the night before.
Yes, absolutely. And have some questions ready, right? Reach out. What do you do? Where do you live? Do you have kids? Just try to get the conversation going, especially when you see the first timer badge, because that isn't a difficult one the first time you go to a conference. But absolutely, and I have made lifelong friends attending these conferences, and you learn a lot. It's very busy, but there is downtime, and we look forward to that just as much as the learning aspect.
Yeah, and I would also say, customs itself, the agencies attend the conferences, and some of the very helpful relationships. I mean, to understand so that there's a give and take. What Maria Luisa used to call it the bidirectional communication between the agency and customs and the other regulatory agencies is very, very important. And it's important to get to know the people on the other side. Regardless of where we're coming from, we all need to talk together, and we need to be able to discuss complex problems in a way that we can get to a solution that resolves it for everybody. And I think those types of conversations have been really fundamental in my life, getting to know some of the people at customs, understanding how they're approaching a situation, and understanding so that, I can better advise my clients when you understand what the agency's thinking about, and to advocate on behalf of everybody.
So what would you say to newcomers in the industry? How do you break the ice? How do you become involved so that you can continue on in your career and make those lifelong friends like we have?
I always say this, and I always say, my good friend Roger Clark, get involved. Get involved at the local level initially. Really, that's how you kind of get your foot in the door. Volunteer, do the legwork, just get yourself noticed. And then eventually you'll start making your local friendships. And when you go to these association conferences, you'll already start to have and build a network.
Yeah, I really agree. I think I was like a program chair at Women in International Trade or something. You have to start and do the work, right? You have to kind of roll up your sleeves a little. It takes time, but it's fun time, right? These days, some people really make a wall between their life and their work life and their home life or their social life or whatever. I think in this field, we've always kind of blurred those walls a little bit, right? When we're talking about friendship here and lifelong friends and learning from others, embrace it as part of your holistic life rather than just cabined in what you consider work. And I think that might make it a little bit easier to kind of go with the flow in the trade community.
And find a mentor, somebody who's going to push you, somebody who's going to get you out of your comfort zone. I remember the first panel, Dan Myler said, come and speak. I was shaking in my boots. I was so nervous. But, once you got the first one over with, it gets easier. You always still get a little nervous. Not Cindy, but most of us. I really find somebody who will help pull you out and pull you into the stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you do have to push yourself a little bit. I think you have to say, what do I want? Maybe you don't want to be a speaker, but maybe you want to be somebody who helps organize the conferences and put everybody together. That's so important. Not my greatest skill, but so very important.
I think it's really important also to identify your mentors. And they don't have to be a very structured program. And I'm going to call you every Tuesday and we're going to have a conversation. Just seek out the people that you admire. I think that's one of the things that I did. I sought out the people that I admired and said, hey, do you have time for coffee? Or what are you doing for dinner? And those conversations, especially when you're talking about people who aren't very outgoing or social, a lot of those people who have been my lifelong friends now, we're going to go back to their room and have dinner. And I asked them, what are you having for dinner? We got together for dinner, and that started, 25 years of really deep friendships. So don't be afraid to get out there and really ask the questions, seek out the people that you admire, have conversations, be courageous, and long live friendships in the industry. We'll see you next week.